Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we now move into the next segment of this show, we're going to invite our four very special people, actually five, to the stage now. I need to get my cheat sheet, or maybe I'll do this in memory, see how good we are. Richard Mogg is going to be the moderator. Now, Richard is my offsider. He's a Lieutenant Colonel, just retired after 30 years in the military. He's also, like me, an iRest trained practitioner and teacher. So he's delivered the protocol into the military from 2016. And here's my notes, thank you. So Richard will moderate the panel session. Richard and I have been delivering the pilot program. So with CyberCX in particular, and we've got another contract with a government place in Canberra soon. And again, we've got some the scripts that we've developed now that are unique to cyber, with the blessing of the iRest Institute, and so we're rolling those out. But Richard tonight is going to be the moderator. Now we've got four panelists, and you might know some of these. You'll know Kevin Shaw. He's a long-standing CISO, he's a virtual CISO now, but he's been in cyber leadership roles for the best part of his professional post-military career. He also had a military career. And he is the head of Cybermindz Ambassadorial Program and our volunteer program. So welcome, Kevin Shaw. This is going to be a long segment, but I just thought we'd capture four different perspectives, and Richard will help lead them through some questions. I'd like to invite Jessica Nguyễn. Where is she? Yes? There she is. So Jess is the cybersecurity GRC analyst at the University of New South Wales, but more importantly for our purposes tonight, she was part of the Allianz early adopter program that we ran in April last year, which was our first toe in the water in doing it in protocol. So Jess is here tonight. She's going to talk a little bit about what she found, and she did the iRest protocol with Cybermindz. We then have Dr. Andrew Reeves. Come up, Andrew. Andrew is our director. So Andrew is our director of organisational behavioural research. He's a PhD in psychology. He is actually a world leader in human cyber behavioural risk. He's published in the area. And he's come on to our board, and he's actually doing the metrics work. So he's conducting our national baseline study into working out where cyber sits in relation to the rest of the industry and in relation to the rest of the population. And Andrew will be talking a little bit tonight about what our research is finding already. Also, Andrew is administering the metrics that we're using to show the progress that your organisation, the journey, where you begin and where you end on the mental health scale. So Andrew will be talking about that. He's very well recognised, highly accomplished, and he knows there's 35 survey instruments that we use in psychology to measure the metrics and things across, I would say, most, if not all of those. Finally, on our panel, I'd like to introduce Sabrina Pedisoli. Where are you, Sabrina? Trying to feel about the Academy Awards, all these rock stars you've got in the room. Now, Sabrina is also a GRC analyst, but more importantly, she's the national lead of the AWSN, that's Australian Women in Cybersecurity Network, Explorers Program. So it's a new program, and you'll be talking a little bit about that tonight, but in particular, her experience as a woman in cybersecurity and the kind of leadership that is available to be shown here, particularly in the mental health space. So that'll be exciting. And now, Richard, I'm going to hand over the microphone to you, and you're going to lead the panel through a discussion. So thank you.
Wow. Talented people. So, Sabrina, first of all, I'll start with you. You, as we just heard, are leading this Australian Women in Security Network Explorers Program, which I understand exists to support, connect and inspire women who might be considering joining the cyber industry. They might be new entrants as students or changing careers in the sector. And I'll note that attracting women to the sector is very important because the percentage across our nation at the moment is only around 12% women in cyber. That's really surprising because there's no physical barriers. My background is in the military. And in the military where we're overcoming some of the physical barriers and some of the perceived physical barriers, we're up around sort of 15 to 20 to 25%, depending on what trade it is, and across the services. So very interesting that that percentage is so low in cyber. So congratulations to all the women in the room and to the network for the program. We're very pleased to get the word out to our women. So from your experience as a woman working in cyber and the other connections you have talking to women in the sector, what are their views on why is this percentage so low? Are they hearing about these stresses in the sector that we've already heard tonight? And as you connect to women, what are their expectations about this industry that they're about to join?
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, thank you so much for introducing the Explorer program. And that's correct, it's just a program that AWSN offers to all women who is new to cyber, so they can be students earning their career or just like changing their career. I was an accountant. I worked in management accounting, forensic accounting, and then I came across cyber, so I just changed. So many women are in a same situation. So every time I think you change job, you're new, you are stressed, you are under pressure because you want to perform well, there is a lot to learn, and mostly I realize that in this industry there is a lot to learn. So as a new entry, you are under stress because you want to learn, and at the same time we have a very challenging industry, and as a woman sometimes you want to perform and to demonstrate that you are as good as a man. And it's funny because I met some of the women last week, and one of the things we discussed was a woman actually asked me if she could be a mom and work in the industry and work in the cyber field. And I asked her why she was thinking that would be a problem. And she said because a lot of men around her, they can stay longer or like early, while she needs to pick up the kids or drop the kids at school in the morning. So she was under pressure, not only because she was new to cyber and there was a lot to learn, but because she was a woman and she was just wondering if she could compete against men. And that's true. So there's an extra pressure maybe on women at the moment, and I want thanks all the men because they are doing such a great job. We are improving the situation, that's for sure. We are sharing now responsibility in a family, so it's not only the woman now who does work around the house or go to pick up the kids at school, but still is the woman most of the time who need to do this family work. So, and it's nice to see so many students here and some of the Explorer here because it's important when you enter to the industry from the very beginning to realize that yes, it's a very stressful industry, but there is a place for you as well, and mostly it's good to start from with a good balance, work-life balance. So yeah, so it's an interesting topic, which yes, we discussed from the early start, and it's good that we support each other. Mostly we show, mostly women who want to enter in the cyberspace that is possible.
Provide that perspective, and we may well hear more as we progress through from Sabrina. So, Kevin, you're not a new entrant to cyber. You're a long and distinguished career in the sector, and in various roles, including at the senior leaders positions as vCISO. And from your experience, what is your own personal experience as far as managing stress and burnout in the sector? your own personal experience and those others that you might have spoken to that are in the senior leadership positions. We've heard that this is a challenge. Is this truly a challenge? What are the specific stresses in this industry?
Is this still on?
You would think I work in technology, wouldn't you? I think it's a very real problem out there. For those of you who don't know me, and there's a lot of new faces in the room here tonight, I have been working in cybersecurity since probably the mid-90s. I did my first identity management implementation back in 1998 in New Zealand. And I sort of retired, in inverted commas, February last year. Just stress, burnout, and a whole bunch of things. And it's interesting when you run through a lot of these things, sometimes it takes a crisis mode for you to stop and then take audit of where you were at. I was a typical kind of bloke when it came to dealing with stress, which was, hey, I need to man up a bit more and stop being such a wuss. Just keep on trying to power through. My focus in terms of trying to manage stress was on my teams and making sure my team was okay and my team was protected. And particularly the new entrants and some of the key resources in the team. So I didn't really have too much of the time to focus on myself and what I was needing. So I worked really, really hard. I'm going, over quite a period of time. I would be working very, very hard, and then I would be playing very, very hard as well. So, you've all been to a lot of the security conferences, particularly if you get into the ones in the US and the ones in Vegas. You're working hard during the day, but then, you hit the nightclubs and the pubs and the alcohol's flowing, etc., etc. So, it wasn't a good lifestyle, and it certainly wasn't a sustainable way to manage stress in the whole environment. So I was just getting more and more wound up like a clock. Probably at some point it's very unpleasant to be around, and certainly put a lot of pressure through on the family with all of that. I mentioned a little bit about the crisis side of things. But over about 8 months, 10 months, a couple of things. I had a couple of things that happened that got me to stop and look back and then realize where stress was going. My son, who's 25, had a serious medical issue, ended up in hospital. We weren't too sure how that was going to go. My father died, so I was having to deal with him in his estate. A few months later, my mother, who had severe Alzheimer's, she passed away as well. And then a month after that, my golden retriever, just put it into perspective, that we had for 12 years, the dog died as well. So it was just like a long, click, click, click of things running through. And I was working in an environment that was, I think, culturally quite toxic and very, very stressful environment. For the people working in security here, sometimes working in security is like that scene in the horror movie where you see everybody in the audience goes, behind you, and the person blunders and gets murdered anyway. I spent too much of my life telling boards and senior executives, behind you, you need to do something, and not being listened to, right? So all those crises hit. That was just really starting to affect me personally. I actually ended up in 2 instances, which I'm happy to share more publicly, but I ended up in 2 full-on panic meltdowns. So I don't know if anybody in the room here has had a panic attack, but it's like one of the most shocking and really weird experiences to go through. It was like an out-of-body experience that I was having, and there was a separate conversation going on between me and this reality, as was happening with everybody else that was with me on the Zoom call. And that's when one of the people in my team, I've worked with in 3 companies, said to me, Kev, I think you really need to have a think and have a break. I hadn't taken a long holiday in donkey's years. I got back, I had a chat with my wife, and I was explaining things, and she said, well, why are you working? I said, well, it's tied up, it's part of my identity, it's what I've done for most of my life, and I'm bringing home the bacon. And my wife said to me, I don't need any more bacon, we don't need any more bacon, and what I don't need to do is have loads of bacon and no husband. So think about that. And I think she was a little bit taken back when I came back next week and said I resigned. I'm effectively retired from that point. So that was that side of things. So hopefully it gets at some things that, I talk with a lot of CISOs. I think that's another part of your testimony, Richard. I talk with a lot of my peers in the industry, and there's a lot of them here. I respect all of them. I think, we have got that sort of attitude about, we'll overcome everything. And I think there's an element in there as well, is that as a senior person in security, unfortunately the culture has been that if we acknowledge any kind of weakness, particularly like a mental weakness, organizations are not great at supporting security people if they acknowledge a mental illness or burnout. But it's almost down to, this one's broken, we'll go and get another. We can't have the people defending our company and our data to have these flaws around them. So hopefully that answers your question on that one.
Given I want to just explore part of that, then given these stresses that exist in the industry, and obviously we know the statistics of mental health in general across the population from other challenges people experience. People aren't just cybersecurity professionals, they're husband, wives, mothers, fathers, and have other roles and experiences. So we're dealing with that as well. Given what these challenges are, what concerns do you have for at an organisational or even sort of regional, national level of given the impacts that some of these challenges might have as they flow through?
Certainly. I think there's 2 points I could bring to that equation. I talked to my peers, and probably, since we came towards the tail end of the first time with COVID, I sat down and had a chat with a couple of other people, and I think between us we could identify at least 14 people who had more than 20 years experience in a leadership role in cyber, who'd left cyber roles, so frontline roles. They either had gone to work in another role in IT, they had gone into vendor land as a vCISO to help them with dealing, helping their customers, so customer facing rather than kind of role, or like myself, had left the industry completely, right? And I do acknowledge the fact that it's different for some of us. I'm in the fortunate position financially and otherwise that I could step off the playing field, so to speak. I acknowledge that there's a lot of cybersecurity people out there who do not have that luxury, and have to deal with this battle on an absolute daily basis. So my worry is I think we're losing a lot of people at the very experienced end of the spectrum out of the industry. And then when I've been sort of helping a number of folks with their career development, and I work pretty closely with people on my team on their career development. And it used to be, say, 5 or 6 years ago, you knew what a security person wanted to be in 5 years' time. They wanted to be a head of security, or they wanted to be a CISO. I've seen a notable trend, right, where people are going, nah, I'm going to stay in a technical role. I'm going to stay on the tools. Why would I want to go and work in a role like yours that has got the level of stress it's got, has got the lack of respect for the role? You're not treated as an equal member of the C-suite. Well, why would I put up with all of that when I can get pretty close to what you're earning in a good technical role? Or quite frankly, I can move into something else. So for me, the worry is that we're going to be losing people coming into cyber unless we do something about it. We're going to be losing the people you mentioned, which is the new entrants coming through in the industry. And then we're going to be losing people at the top end of the experience spectrum. I don't know how many people here were at the ASA conference last year down in Melbourne. Once again, thanks for the stand for Cybermindz. But I did a presentation down there, and I ended up talking with a bunch of people. And it was amazing that the number of folks that I've known well that came up to me afterwards. And if I could condense the one question I had from most people, it was, how did you get out? Right? And that's a really, really sad indictment of where we are at from a mental health perspective in this industry, that people who are still working in these critical roles looked at somebody like myself and said, you're lucky. How did you get out?
Thanks for sharing so generously and courageously. So turning to Jessica. Jessica, you were part of one of the initial programs that Peter delivered during the time you were with Allianz Insurance. We've heard a little bit about the challenges of cyber. One of the solutions that Cybermindz is offering is this integrated restoration iRest program that was delivered through I think it was a 4-week program, in that case delivered to Allianz. What was your experience, and what did you observe in yourself and the other team members that participated in that program?
good. First, I'll give credit to my previous team, Allianz, for bringing the Cybermindz Pilot to our organisation. But I still remember the day really clearly. Most of us came into the room with our laptop, our mobile phone, personal and work. We were like, oh, it's just one of those well-being webinars. We came in and I remember Peter's like, put your laptop away, your phone away. And I thought, what do you mean? What do you mean put it away? And I think all of us, we were really attached to our technology and we just weren't used to it. But it was really good. Like, we got to lie down, there was pillows, a mat, and we learned the protocol. And it gave us a restful mind. And I think just learning the protocol, even though I'm not with the organisation anymore, I've taken it with me to my next role. Yeah, it was really good.
Thanks, Jessica. And it's always a challenge for any organisation to add more to the program. There's so many other trainings that already need to be considered, and to convince your HR department that this is important. What advice might you have for other organisations from the experience that you've had?
Well, first of all, it did come from our HR department, so I really appreciate that, Vicky. And I think what's really good about it is I really appreciated the fact that our CISO came, our senior execs came, so Bruce, Matt, Steve, they came and joined us when we did the pilot, and I think it really resonated with the fact that they can relate to us and they were able to take their time out to join us and do the protocol. I would suggest, listening to your employees, but not just listening, but also joining them in the protocol. And you can start off with the demo as well, and see how you go.
And Andrew, you're a psychologist, you're heading up the research program for Cybermindz, and you're a researcher at a university as well. You've put together the metrics around our baseline survey to measure the state of the mental health across the sector, and also metrics to measure the success of our program itself. What can you tell us about the early indicators of the data collected so far about the stresses across the industry, and what are these telling us?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. You're absolutely right. When we first started, we really wanted to get an idea of where the industry is right now. A lot of what we wanted to do is about preventing burnout, but also improving the state of affairs in the cybersecurity industry. So to do that, we wanted to have a good understanding of where we are at the start. So we started measuring. We had fantastic support from a lot of people in this room, so a big thank you to the organisations here who took part in our study. It's to some extent still ongoing. And we measured a whole different raft of people who worked in the cybersecurity industry, all the way from, we had SOC analysts, we had CISOs, and we had everything in between. And they were all measured on a psychometric measure of burnout. And at first we thought, okay, let's have a look. We didn't want to just measure these people on burnout and just say, there you go, there's your score. So we thought, let's measure in comparison to the Australian general population. We know, given COVID and a lot of other stresses, the whole workforce is under a lot of stress at the moment. Where is cyber sitting? Is cyber at that level? Are they better? Are they worse? So we compared to the general population, and not unexpectedly, given what we've heard, we found that the burnout rate is considerably higher than the general population. In particular, we saw the levels of emotional exhaustion people were feeling were much higher than the general population. So feeling like you've got nothing else to give at work, feeling like every new request you get is the straw that broke the camel's back, is really common. So all you can really do is essentially what's asked of you, and then you leave. The sort of extra behaviours to go the extra mile, you've got no capacity for that. You're burnt out. And then we thought, well, okay, we can see that to some extent expectedly, this industry is more burnt out than the general population. Well, what if we go a step further? What if we compare to another industry that we know is under incredible stress? So we compared, we had a fantastic sample that came out of a recent paper in 2021, I think it was. It gave us a really modern, new norm group for frontline healthcare workers. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to see how the cybersecurity sector is comparing to that? And what we saw was that the cybersecurity industry was scoring at burnout levels at the level of frontline healthcare workers and sometimes above. Particularly the scores that were predicting intent to resign, which we've heard about. That was through the roof compared even to frontline healthcare workers. And one of the things that in fact came up in discussion at my table that was really interesting about that is one of the buffers for that is feeling appreciated for what you do. And that's what was scoring quite low in our sample. So say with a frontline healthcare worker, you feel appreciated, I imagine, regardless of necessarily the outcome. So if you're a firefighter and you come along and you attempt to put out a fire, even if you don't necessarily succeed, you're still thanked for what you did. Same with a nurse, the same with a paramedic. Sure, sometimes I'm sure they have negative outcomes as well, but just doing your role, you feel appreciated at a societal level and even in your organization. I think that's what is missing in the cyber community to some extent. When there's 12 months of success, so attacks have been successfully stopped for 12 months, no one really notices. But when a successful attack happens, suddenly all eyes are on you. And hindsight becomes 20/20, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that? So I think there's a few different elements to this. One of them, a big part of this is the new starters to the industry. So what are the lessons we're showing them? Are they going into an industry where they feel, if I make a mistake, or even if maybe they don't make a mistake, they just don't succeed in protecting against an incredibly difficult challenge, am I going to be blamed for it? So why would I go down that road? So there's to some extent a societal level where we need to think about how do we respect these people in this role and support them, but there's actually a lot we can do at an organisational level as well. So can we say that even if the rest of the world might see you as, you've made a mistake, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, can we at least say to our cyber people that we support you, we get how difficult it is what you're doing, we get that there's an attacker out there who's the bad guy, who only needs to succeed once, whereas you have to succeed 100% of the time. So I think that's where we have a lot more space to make change. And if we can start to move the needle a little bit on these measures of, do these people feel like they are appreciated at work? Do they feel like what they're doing is worth doing? Do they feel like they are emotionally supported at work? That's when we can start to put some of these buffers so that rather than getting to the stage where you're burnt out, you can't do anymore, you either leave, at best you leave the organisation, at worst you leave the industry entirely. And if you leave the industry entirely, we've lost all of that knowledge, that experience. So if we can have some preventative mechanism before that, to say we're going to keep you in the industry, we're going to keep your knowledge, we're going to keep your experience, I think that's where we have a lot more value.
Thanks, Andrew. These same metrics that we've started to baseline are going to be used by Cybermindz as we engage with each organisation. As we deliver the iRest protocol, what can you tell us about the metrics and measures that might be available to an organisation to understand?
That's a great question. So with the metrics that we roll out, we have the burnout measure that I mentioned that goes through emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and feeling supported at work, which are the three things I've already touched on. We also have metrics available for sleep quality, which is something we're seeing, I didn't touch on it, but is also not looking great in the cyber community, and we've had some real world experience of that on this panel. And the last measure we have is psychological capital, which is that feeling that you can push the extra mile and you have something more to give. So they're the three areas of metrics that we have available. One of the things that is really interesting about the data we have, as far as we know, we have the only norm group of the cyber industry in Australia. So we can compare organisations not just to the general Australian population, but we can compare them to other Australian organisations to say, where do you sit? Are you in the top 25th percentile, the bottom 25th percentile? On top of that, where are the gaps? So what is it that is making your particular team, even if it's only a team of say 10 people, all the way up to you've got 400 cyber staff, what is it that they're experiencing that's leading to their levels of stress and burnout, so that you can then tailor interventions to that. On top of that, when we roll out our own, say the iRest protocol we've all had a taste of now, we can then track progress against the original measure that we've got from your organisation. So we're not just saying, look, we've proven it before, we have our own data out there, we're about to publish on the data that we've collected, but on top of that we can say, here's where you were a year ago, we've done this, and here's where you are now.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Jessica. And then Sabrina.